Chapter 40: The Liberation Ride. The streets of Serendel, once bustling with the relentless rhythm of enforced conformity, now echoed with the rhythmic thumping of basketballs and the sound of hooves against cobblestone. The Heart and the Crimson Coterie, united in their mission, had set forth on horseback, a striking and unusual sight amidst the city's grandeur. Each member carried a basketball, their faces a mix of determination and hope. Lady Siobhan McGregor, now disguised as Lady Seraphina, led the charge. Her majestic steed was adorned with a black and white checkerboard blanket, mirroring the pattern on the horses of her entourage. She rode with purpose, her gaze sweeping over the city, ready to liberate those trapped under the Harmony Nexus's control. Ellie and Marcus, mounted on their horses, rode alongside, their own basketballs at the ready. Marcus, his earlier anxiety replaced by resolute focus, dribbled his basketball with a newfound sense of precision. Ellie, her face set in determination, scanned the streets for signs of those in need of liberation. The streets of Serendel were alive with activity, the grand gyno-fascist gala casting an extravagant glow over the city. The people, many of whom were under the influence of the Harmony Nexus, moved in a trance-like state, their eyes devoid of true awareness. The team's task was clear: to free as many as possible and restore their sense of self. Their plan was simple yet effective. As they rode through the city, they targeted individuals showing signs of Nexus-induced hypnosis. Each member of the Heart and the Crimson Coterie took turns bonking people gently on the head with their basketballs, disrupting the Nexus's control. "Look over there," Ellie shouted, pointing to a man who seemed lost in a daze, his eyes unfocused. She rode up alongside him, her basketball poised for action. With a swift, practiced motion, she tapped him lightly on the head. The effect was almost immediate. The man's eyes cleared, and he blinked in confusion. "What? Where am I?" he muttered, his voice tinged with bewilderment. Another member of the Crimson Coterie, a young woman named Clara, rode up beside him. "You're free," she said reassuringly. "The Harmony Nexus was controlling you. You're safe now." The man looked around, his confusion giving way to relief. "Thank you. I felt like I was trapped in a dream I couldn't wake up from." As they continued their ride, the team moved methodically through the city, targeting areas with large concentrations of people. They maneuvered through winding alleyways and grand boulevards, their horses' hooves creating a steady rhythm of liberation. Marcus, riding close to Ellie, glanced around nervously, but with a sense of purpose. He spotted a young woman sitting alone on a bench, her eyes glazed over. "Ellie, over there," he said, his voice steady despite his earlier anxiety. Ellie nodded and rode up to the woman. With a gentle tap of her basketball, she freed the woman from her trance. The young woman's eyes fluttered open, and she looked around with a mix of fear and gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly. "I don't know what was happening to me, but I feel like I'm waking up." The team continued their work, moving through the city with precision. They encountered more people under the Nexus's control, each successful tap bringing a moment of clarity and freedom. The streets began to change, as more individuals were freed from their mental chains. Lady Siobhan, leading the charge, rode confidently. Her disguise as Lady Seraphina gave her an air of authority, and her presence inspired those around her. Her leadership was crucial in maintaining the order and effectiveness of their mission. The liberation ride lasted for hours, but the impact was profound. The streets of Serendel, once under the oppressive grip of the Harmony Nexus, began to show signs of awakening. As more individuals were freed, the city's atmosphere shifted from one of controlled obedience to a tentative, emerging sense of self-awareness. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the city, Ellie and Marcus rode back to the hideout with the Heart and the Crimson Coterie. Their spirits were high, fueled by the knowledge that they had made a tangible difference. Back at the hideout, the members of the Heart and the Crimson Coterie gathered to discuss their progress. The atmosphere was one of cautious optimism. The basketballs, once mere symbols of rebellion, had become instruments of liberation, and their success had renewed their hope for a future free from the Harmony Nexus's control. Ellie and Marcus shared their experiences, recounting the stories of those they had freed. The hideout, filled with the warmth of camaraderie and the glow of hope, became a beacon for the resistance. The city of Serendel, though still under threat, had taken its first steps toward freedom, and the journey ahead was filled with both challenges and opportunity. As the night fell, Ellie, Marcus, and their allies prepared for the next phase of their mission. The battle against the Gyno-fascist regime was far from over, but with each step forward, they drew closer to their goal of restoring true freedom to their world. Chapter 41: The Dawn of a New Era. As the first rays of dawn stretched over the skyline of Serendel, the city seemed to hold its breath. The chaos of the previous days had left an indelible mark, but the light of morning brought with it the promise of change. The Grand Gyno-fascist Gala had been a turning point, and now the fight for freedom was entering a new chapter. The hideout, a once hastily chosen refuge, had transformed into a bustling hub of activity. The members of the Heart and the Crimson Coterie were animated, their spirits lifted by the recent victories. The defeat of the Harmony Nexus's grip on Serendel was a monumental achievement, but they knew their mission was far from over. Lady Siobhan McGregor, having shed her disguise as Lady Seraphina, stood at the heart of the hideout. Her presence was a beacon of hope, her eyes reflecting the determination and resolve that had brought them this far. The hideout was a lively scene, the warmth of camaraderie filling the room as people discussed plans and prepared for the next steps. Ellie and Marcus, their faces etched with both exhaustion and relief, felt a renewed sense of purpose. Their success in using basketballs to disable the Harmony Nexus had been a breakthrough, and the transformation of Evelyn Grace into a cautionary tale was a powerful symbol of the regime's flaws. The hideout's courtyard, bathed in the soft morning light, was adorned with beautiful ponies. Their coats gleamed in hues of silver and gold, their manes flowing in the gentle breeze. Each pony was adorned with vibrant, intricately woven blankets in shades of blue and green, reflecting the colors of the resistance. The ponies pranced about, their movements graceful and elegant, adding a sense of peace and beauty to the otherwise chaotic surroundings. Ellie and Marcus, still in their riding gear, ventured into the courtyard to check on the horses. The ponies, sensing their presence, nuzzled them affectionately. Marcus, with a tender touch, brushed the mane of a particularly striking pony with a coat of deep chestnut and white. Ellie, her mind still preoccupied with the recent events, found solace in the rhythmic brushing. As Ellie groomed one of the ponies, Mr. Whiskers, the ever-curious cat, appeared with his usual air of mischief. He wove between the pony's legs and purred loudly, his presence adding a touch of normalcy to the morning's hustle. Mr. Whiskers rubbed up against Ellie's leg, clearly pleased to be part of the scene. "Good morning, Mr. Whiskers," Ellie said, her voice softening as she bent down to scratch him behind the ears. "You're in quite a good mood today." The cat meowed in response, arching his back and stretching as if to show his appreciation. His presence was a comforting constant, a reminder of the simpler, untainted parts of life amidst the upheaval. Marcus joined Ellie, his attention shifting between the ponies and Mr. Whiskers. "It's hard to believe how much has changed," he remarked, his fingers gently stroking the pony's velvety coat. "We've come a long way from where we started." Ellie nodded, her thoughts drifting back to the night before. "I never imagined we'd get this far. It's overwhelming, but I'm so grateful for everything we've accomplished." As they continued their tasks, Lady Siobhan approached them, her expression thoughtful. "We've made significant strides," she said, her gaze lingering on the ponies. "But our journey is far from over. We need to keep pushing forward, to help more people see the truth and join our cause." The courtyard was alive with activity, as the team prepared for the next phase of their mission. The ponies were groomed and readied for travel, their beautiful coats now shimmering with care. The members of the Heart and the Crimson Coterie worked diligently, their focus unwavering as they made final preparations. With the sun climbing higher in the sky, Ellie and Marcus decided to visit Serena Brighton once more. Serena's home, a modest yet welcoming space, reflected the clarity she had gained in recent days. Ellie and Marcus arrived with a renewed sense of hope, ready to share their progress and encourage Serena's continued support. Serena greeted them warmly, her demeanor reflecting a newfound understanding. "I can't believe how wrong I was," she said, her voice tinged with both regret and determination. "The learned elders were a fabrication, and I was blind to it. Thank you for showing me the truth." Ellie smiled, her heart swelling with relief. "It's never too late to make a difference. Your voice can help others see the truth and join our fight." As the day wore on, the resistance members gathered at the hideout, their spirits high despite the challenges ahead. The hideout's courtyard was a scene of activity and preparation, the ponies readying for their next journey. The vibrant colors of the blankets and the gentle whinnies of the ponies added a sense of beauty and normalcy to the scene. In a quiet corner of the courtyard, Ellie and Marcus took a moment to themselves, The weight of their shared experiences and the triumphs they had achieved had drawn them closer together. They stood side by side, their gazes reflecting a deep, unspoken bond. Ellie took a deep breath, her emotions a mix of relief and lingering tension. "It's been an incredible journey, hasn't it?" Marcus nodded, his eyes softening with affection. "We've faced so much together, I'm grateful for every step of it." Without another word, Ellie moved closer to Marcus. The connection between them was undeniable, and as they leaned in, their lips met in a tender, passionate kiss. It was a moment of pure emotion, a culmination of their struggles and their bond. The kiss deepened, filled with the promise of a future beyond the fight and the hope that they had kindled together. When they finally pulled away, their eyes met with a shared understanding of the journey they had undertaken and the road that lay ahead. The sun rose over Serendel, casting a hopeful glow over the city and signaling the start of a new chapter in its history. The fight for freedom was far from over, but with each step taken, the dream of a world free from the tyranny of the Harmony Nexus grew closer to reality. And in the midst of it all, Ellie and Marcus found solace and strength in each other, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. Epilogue. The final rescue. The prison loomed in the distance, a monolithic structure of cold steel and concrete, shrouded in darkness and despair. Inside, Victor Hart lay motionless on the floor of his cell, his body battered and broken, but his spirit unyielding. He had lost track of time, the days and nights blending into one endless cycle of torment. The only company he had were the rats that scurried across the damp floor, their sharp teeth a constant reminder of the inhumane conditions he was forced to endure. Suddenly, the silence of the prison was shattered by a distant, rhythmic thudding. It echoed through the corridors, growing louder with each passing moment. Victor stirred, his mind struggling to comprehend the sound that seemed so out of place in this house of suffering. The thudding grew closer, now accompanied by hurried footsteps and the murmur of voices. Marcus and Ellie had infiltrated the prison under the cover of night, armed with nothing but their determination and a single basketball. They had spent days planning this rescue, navigating through the treacherous streets of Serendel, evading patrols, and finally reaching the place where Victor was being held captive. Their hearts pounded with a mixture of fear and hope as they approached his cell. Marcus dribbled the basketball with a fierce intensity, the sound reverberating off the walls as if it were the heartbeat of their mission. He knew that time was of the essence. Every second they spent inside the prison increased the risk of being discovered. Ellie kept a watchful eye on their surroundings, her hand resting on the hilt of a knife tucked into her belt. They reached Victor's cell, the heavy door a barrier between them and their friend. Ellie quickly set to work on the lock, her fingers nimble as she manipulated the crude tools she had brought with her. Marcus stood guard, his eyes scanning the corridor for any sign of guards. Finally, the lock clicked open, and the door creaked as it swung inward. Marcus and Ellie stepped inside, their hearts sinking as they saw the state Victor was in. His face was gaunt, his eyes sunken, and his once strong frame reduced to a shadow of its former self. But when he looked up at them, there was a flicker of recognition, a spark of hope that had not yet been extinguished. "Victor," Ellie whispered, kneeling beside him. "We're here to get you out." Victor tried to speak, but his voice was hoarse and weak. He managed a faint smile, his eyes filled with gratitude. Marcus, not one for sentimental moments, lifted the basketball. "We've got a trick up our sleeve," he said with a grin. "This might hurt a bit, but trust me, it'll do the job." Without another word, Marcus bounced the basketball with precision, aiming it directly at Victor's head. The impact was swift, and for a moment, Victor's eyes widened in shock. But then, as the ball ricocheted off his skull and bounced away, something miraculous happened. The implant that had been embedded in Victor's brain, the Harmony Nexus that had tried to subdue his will, short-circuited. Victor gasped as a surge of clarity washed over him. The fog that had clouded his mind lifted, and with it, the memories of pain and despair began to fade. He felt a strength returning to him, a fire that had been suppressed by the gyno-fascist regime's cruel technology. "Come on," Ellie urged, helping Victor to his feet. "We need to move." Marcus grabbed Victor's other arm, and together, they guided him out of the cell. The trio moved as quickly and quietly as they could, navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the prison. Mr. Whiskers, who had accompanied them on their journey, darted ahead, his keen senses leading them through the maze. As they reached the exit, the dawn began to break, casting a pale light over the city of Serendel. They slipped through the shadows, making their way to the outskirts of the city, where the resistance had set up a safe house. Each step brought them closer to freedom, closer to the end of their harrowing journey. By the time they reached the hideout, Victor was exhausted, but alive. He collapsed onto a makeshift bed, his body finally able to rest. Ellie and Marcus stood by his side, relief washing over them. They had done it. They had rescued Victor Hart, and in doing so, had struck a blow against the gyno-fascist regime. As Victor drifted into a deep, peaceful sleep, Ellie and Marcus exchanged a glance. There was still much to be done, but for now, they could savor this small victory. They had saved their friend, and in the process, had reignited the hope that one day, the gyno-fascist regime would fall. Outside, Mr. Whiskers perched on a fence, his eyes gleaming as he watched the first rays of sunlight break over the horizon. The fight was far from over, but the dawn of a new day had begun.